It talks about focusing on the positives, the things that are actually gains in your life, like the wins, not just the losses. Welcome to the Entrepreneur Motivation Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Bello. Today, we are going to be talking about how you need to focus on the gains and not just the gap. This is actually coming off of a book that I just read called The Gap and the Gain by Dan Sullivan and Dr. Benjamin Hardy, The High Achiever's Guide to Happiness, Confidence, and Success. Now, this was recommended to me. I actually heard one person told me about it, and then someone else had told me about it. I heard it 2 or 3 times within the span of a couple of weeks. And there's a guy who gave me a free coaching session just because he saw I had made a post about not being sure about what I want to focus on and the clarity of my life. Like, where do I want to go in the next 3 to 5 years? Like, I just feel like I'm not sure what I want to do ultimately with my life. So maybe you can relate. Maybe you've seen some success, you've done a couple of things, but now you're having that existential crisis moment of, is what I'm doing now what I actually want to do 3 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now? And I guess the beautiful part is you don't have to have it all figured out. You just have to kind of know a general direction of where you want to go and then start to take actions every single day to get a little bit closer. So you don't have to have your whole life figured out. That is my note for you that I am also figuring out for myself. But where I'm going with this is that the guy who gave me the free coaching session said, "Hey, I really recommend you check out this book, The Gap and the Gain." And as I was writing it down and talking to him over the session, I said, "Oh, wow, I actually recently heard a few people recommend this book to me." And he said, "Pay attention to whenever you hear things multiple times. It's a sign that the universe is trying to give you. It's nudging you towards that, telling you, hey, this is that next best step for you in order to make some progress in whatever area that you're needing to make progress in." So definitely recommend checking this book out. It talks about focusing on the positives, the things that are actually gains in your life, like the wins, not just the losses. So many times high achievers and entrepreneurs tend to focus on how much further they have to go, and they kind of overlook how far they've actually come. And there's a guy, a high performer, another guy in the Arete business group that I'm in. I actually got to meet him back in 2019 at the live event. And let me see here. Oh, cool. He tagged me in something else. Yeah. So I saw one of his posts recently where he said, he's been struggling a lot with gratitude lately. And this is a high performer, 200,000 subscribers on YouTube type thing, multiple businesses, serial entrepreneur type thing. And he also has his, fair share of wins and losses and challenges. But he had made a post about struggling a lot lately with gratitude. He'd been feeling so much anxiety that he actually gets physically dizzy because of some of this. And he gets anxious that he's not where he wants to be. He said, "I fail to recognize that where I am now is exactly where I hoped and dreamed I would be just years ago. When I was here, I wanted to be there. But when I arrived there, I wanted to be somewhere else." Dude, super relatable. If you're looking on my screen here, you can kind of see it's pretty long. It's a pretty long post. And he says, "Question is, when does it ever end?" One of my favorite quotes of all time goes like this: "The idea is to be in a constant state of departure while always arriving." The idea always eluded me, but I realized that somewhere in the middle is where I try my best to be, blissfully dissatisfied, which is actually a concept that Ed Milet always talks about. Blissful dissatisfaction. You're happy, you're grateful for what you've achieved, but you're still a little bit dissatisfied because you know you can achieve more. Then he goes on to say, having a mentality of wanting to become better and wanting to grow is not always sunshine and rainbows. It just simply feels like you're never quite there yet. And when the reality hits that you're actually there, it's just another level waiting to be conquered. I'm not perfect, and it's something I still struggle with, but I'll always put my best foot forward and take time to remind myself that I am the version I was so desperately wanting to become not too long ago. And that's something to be truly grateful for. The journey never ends. You just teach yourself and learn to love that process while practicing gratitude. And because I was feeling these similar things, and not to compare myself to him or anything like that, but he just appears to be way further along than me, at least in comparison in regards to like financial success and monetary success and lifestyle and things like that. I'm still kind of on that path and journey to get to that sort of level. But it's just funny because every level there's another devil. No matter which level you're on, no matter how much money you're making, that's the exact point of this post, is his perceived success to me is much further along than where I am. And even wherever he is, he still feels like he has so much further to go, and he's having a hard time with gratitude. And he realizes that where he is now is where he wanted to be years ago, but still he's looking somewhere else in the future of where he wants to go. And man, that resonated so much. I had been talking about this, I had been sharing this. You probably have heard a couple of episodes here where I dive into that as well, in addition to just putting it on my stories and on my social media posts to let people know what I'm going through, how I'm feeling, and maybe try to figure out what the best solution was. And so this book, The Gap and the Gain, was recommended to me by a few people, and I commented on there. Super relatable, bro. I highly recommend the book, The Gap and the Gain, if you haven't checked it out yet. Someone recommended it after I shared similar thoughts, and man, it was just what the doctor ordered. So, he shared it on his story. He tagged me, thanked me. And now this morning, I guess he already started reading it. He said, I've read over 300 books in the last few years. There have been good books, great books. And then there have been books that have completely shifted my entire mindset, paradigm, and worldview. This book is in the last category. There have only been 3 other books that have done this for me. This book is a life changer, and it came at the most ungodly timing in my life. It opened my eyes to a framework of happiness and confidence that I never knew existed in an area I struggled so much in. As an entrepreneur, a high achiever, and someone who never feels satisfied, I can't recommend this enough. Thank you, Chris Bello, for this book, bro. You may have just saved my life. Dude, I gotta hold on. I'm gonna pause this. I just literally saw that he tagged me in this morning. I absolutely just have to pause this recording real quick, get back to him, because that last sentence, thank you, bro, for this book. You may have just saved my life. I'm kind of getting a little emotional, just feeling like that's powerful. People have told me, I'm getting goosebumps actually right now as I'm reading this to you. And maybe it's cold in here, but I honestly am just super impacted by what this message says, because so many people have all the success, the trappings of success, the appearance of success. Everyone on the outside looking in would switch places with this person, most likely, like, man, this guy's crushing it. He's already where I want to be. And yet he was feeling a little bit ungrateful maybe for his progress, and just seeing how much further he wants to go, because that feeling never ends. And the fact that, people feel like that. And sometimes you see people who commit suicide, or they're depressed, or they do something extremely out of character because it's just they feel like something's missing. They have all these things that make it look like they're where everyone else wants to be, but there's still something missing inside, right? If this is such a powerful episode that I'm recording for you right now, because I literally just saw he's read over 300 books in the last few years. There have been good books, great books, and then books that have completely shifted the paradigm, like this book. So guys, check this out, The Gap and the Gain. That's like the best testimonial. It's not like the best, most fanciest written book ever, and it's not one of those crazy best, I guess it is a best-selling author, the same authors of Who Not How, but it's not one of those like Simon Sinek books where the dude's doing a TED talk and everybody and their mom knows about that book, Start With Why or something. But I've heard very high producing, high-level entrepreneurs recommend books like this. Trevor Mach, the CEO of Carrot, an 8-figure software company. I mean, shout out to that dude. That guy, I mean, I gotta say, when I look up to people, he's one of those people I look up to, and I've shared this with him. I went to their mastermind event in 2021. I've heard him talk about this on his podcast. He may have mentioned it on his story or something like that recently too, just talking about how we have to focus on the gain. So many of us live in the gap. We live in scarcity. We're so worried about how much further we have to go, and we forget how far we've come. So one second, I'm gonna pause this and reply to this guy real quick, because this is super cool, and then I'll get right back to this episode. Okay, and we're back. So I had to just pause because I saw, okay, he had tagged me in a post the other day saying, it had a picture of the book saying, thank you, brother. He tagged me. It had just come in the mail, probably from Amazon or whatever. And he already got started on it. So that was yesterday at 3:26 p.m. This morning, 10:39 a.m. is when he tagged me in that, about this book is in that last category. It's helped him shift his paradigm. And he is an entrepreneur, a high achiever, someone who never feels satisfied. That last line where he said, you may have just saved my life. I mean, not to be dramatic, but I think all of us have known someone or a friend of a friend. We all know people who have been lost to just suicide or the darkness, or just like depression and sadness and overwhelming despair type stuff, right? And the fact that we can make a positive impact. Like, I was just I thought of him randomly. I've seen his posts. I followed him. I kind of looked at his page. I saw a post about him feeling, the struggles of being grateful for all the things he's accomplished. Dropped that comment. He ordered the book, and here we are. You may have just saved my life. I can't. This is why I'm here for you in my audience, because sometimes we downplay and we just don't realize how much impact we can have on others. I'm guilty of this too. I'm like, man, I haven't been posting much on social media. I realize it. I don't have a huge following just yet. My podcast has, almost 2 million downloads, which is awesome. I'm living in the gap personally myself, which is exactly what this book talks about, by looking at my Instagram followers and saying like, man, I only have 2581, like 2,581 followers on there. Facebook, I've got 3,500 friends. Like LinkedIn, maybe I have 1,000 followers overall. And no matter what, even when I passed 1 million downloads, I remember it was just a fleeting moment of gratitude and happiness. And immediately was like, all right, what's next? 2 million or 5 million downloads. We never take time to actually sit back and appreciate what we freaking accomplished. It's crazy. Man, the world that we live in is just so cool because we can impact others positively. You can comment and make a recommendation on someone's post. They may take you up on that. They may order that book. They may listen to that podcast that may be just what the doctor ordered at that time in their life when they were struggling with something that book can provide some answers and ideas around. I know Tim Ferriss has talked about in Tools of Titans of happiness jar. High performers tend to move on to the next. They're just you're so busy, you're trying to accomplish so many things and change the world. You sweep your wins under the rug and you just don't appreciate them as much as you should. And so he talks about having a literal jar of happiness or happiness jar. I think it was called Jar of Happiness or something like that, where any wins, any things that he has to be grateful for, he'd kind of like put it in a piece of paper or like print out a picture or something and literally put it in a jar. So anytime he's feeling sad or frustrated or like he's a failure or like he hasn't accomplished a whole lot, he can literally look at that jar and see physical evidence of the wins that he's had, of the amazing experiences that he has created. And I've been doing this more frequently or more recently as well. I do a daily journal. Let me see if I can quickly share my screen. If you're watching this on YouTube, you'll get a little bit of the behind the scenes that you're not going to get if you're listening to just the podcast version. But I do journal entries every single day. I've been doing this since 2018. And today I did a double journal because I didn't really type one in yesterday. So I filled in what we did yesterday. I filled in what I'm working on today. And it was actually my fiance's 30th birthday as of the time of this recording yesterday. So we did a lot of cool stuff. We were out all day. We were hanging out with a bunch of friends. And it was cool because we got photos throughout the day. And I got to actually document what we did, who we hung out with, how it all went, how we were super exhausted by the end of the day because we were out for like 12 hours doing like a corn maze. And we went to an Oktoberfest thing. We got lunch. We quickly stopped home to take the dog out real quick. And then we went back out again to go to a baseball game out here, the Rockies game that we had, some friends invite us. The real estate guy that I'm trying to work with and see how we can partner up, he actually had an extra ticket. So my fiance and I went to go with him and his wife, and we had a great time. So let me just quickly find exactly where I dropped that so you can see. So let me share my screen. And my journal's super simple, right? I'm typing this out on the 25th around 11:30 a.m. We had a great and eventful day yesterday. We went to a corn maze at 11 a.m. From there, we went to Oktoberfest on Larimer Street. Here's a picture, if you're watching on YouTube, of my fiance and I at the corn maze in front of some like old farm truck thing that was there for photos. Another photo here on Larimer Street of Oktoberfest with some of our friends out here in Colorado. And then this photo right here we got as well. So I said, Gabby had a great day overall, and she didn't expect to do so many fun things. I'm super grateful for everything and am appreciative for the friends and relationships in our lives. So this is almost like my jar of happiness, my way of documenting what we did, my gratitude journal, because whenever I do my journal every single morning, I review this day on 2018, on 2019, 2020, 2021, and then I go ahead and type 2022s so I can kind of track and see what did I do on this day every single year. It's almost like a Facebook memory, but instead of what did I post, it is what was I thinking? What was I doing? What was I going through? What was I struggling with? Where were my wins? And I can kind of track and see like, wow, that thing I was struggling with in 2018, I'm still struggling with today, or I can be grateful for the gains and the wins and say that thing that I was stuck on in 2019, like, wow, I've really figured that out. I have that on lock, right? Assuming I'm still here a year from now, I'm going to look at this day and I'm going to smile and say, like, wow, so today, a year ago, we had gone to Oktoberfest, we did the corn maze, I got photobombed with the selfie by that real estate guy at the Rockies game that we went to, So I'm living those moments. I'm kind of reliving them in a way. And I'm reminding myself that I have a lot to be grateful for. We have some amazing friendships and relationships in our lives. And I literally feel better from seeing those photos and from reading that message that I got tagged in today of how I may have literally saved this guy's life. Like, man, how do you not feel better after reading that and knowing that you're making a positive impact in the lives of others? And that's exactly why I'm here recording this message for you, and why I will continue to do so, because someone out there in the world needs to hear your message, and you have the power to positively make an impact in the world and in the lives of others. So that's all for this episode. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe. I'm going to drop a link to the gap and the gain. If you're resonating with anything we're talking about today, if you're having a hard time feeling grateful, if you feel like you're just constantly focused on the future and the things you have yet to achieve instead of being focused on the wins under your belt that you forget to take inventory of, I highly recommend you check out the gap and the gain. I'm going to drop the link in the show notes below. But that was the book that I needed when others recommended it to me. And I passed it along to someone else who seemed to be dealing with the same challenges. And if you're resonating with anything that I talked about today, check that book out. Make a list of things you're grateful for, because you'll probably find that the list is far larger than you are envisioning right now in your mind. So that's it for this episode. I look forward to catching you on the next one. And thanks so much for your time. Talk soon.